There are promises we keep because they're easy, and there are promises we keep because they define who we are. This is a story about the second kind, Wyoming Territory, summer of 1879. The high desert stretched out in every direction, an ocean of sage and dust under a sky so blue it hurt to look at. The land was hard here. It broke men who weren't careful, swallowed them whole, and left nothing but bleached bones and forgotten names. Cole Garrett rode through that vastness like a man who'd made peace with solitude. 33 years old, lean and weathered, with eyes the color of creek water in winter. He wore his past like the scar on his left hand, visible but not spoken of. The war had taken something from him. His sister's death had taken more. What remained was a man who kept his promises even when no one was left to remember them. His mare, a buckskin named Dust, picked her way along the ridge trail. They were 2 hours from the ranch. Cole had been checking fence line in the northern pasture where the cattle sometimes wandered into box canyons and got themselves stuck. Hard work, lonely work, the kind he preferred. That's when he saw them. Buzzards. 3 of them circling lazy patterns against that impossible blue. Cole's jaw tightened. Buzzards meant something dying or already dead. Could be a calf. Could be worse. He turned Dust toward the birds. The smell hit him first. Death and dust and something else. A horse. He crested a small rise and saw it below. A paint mare leg stiff bloated in the heat. Dead maybe 2 days. And next to it, barely visible in the shadow of a rock outcropping, a small shape. Cole dismounted before Dust had fully stopped. His boots hit the ground running. The shape was a child. A girl. She lay on her side arms wrapped around herself, lips cracked and bleeding. Her dress, once probably blue, was torn and filthy. Dark hair stuck to her face in sweaty tangles. He knelt beside her, fingers finding the pulse point at her neck. Faint, threading. But there. She was alive. Her eyelids fluttered. The smallest sound escaped her throat, barely more than breath. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't let him find me." Then she was gone again, unconscious or close to it. Cole didn't hesitate. He pulled his canteen, wet his bandana, and pressed it to her lips. A few drops, not too much. Too much water too fast could kill someone this far gone. He'd learned that the hard way, watching soldiers die in field hospitals during the war. "Easy now," he said, though she couldn't hear him. "I've got you." He wrapped her in his bedroll, lifted her as carefully as he would a wounded fawn. She weighed almost nothing, 9, maybe 10 years old. How long had she been out here? How had she survived this long? Questions for later. Right now, getting her to the ranch was all that mattered. Cole settled her across Dust's saddle, climbed up behind her, and held her steady with one arm. The mare seemed to understand the urgency. She moved faster than usual, her gait smooth to avoid jostling the fragile cargo. The ride back took 90 minutes that felt like 9 hours. Cole kept checking the girl's pulse, kept making sure she was still breathing. Once she stirred and made that small sound again. Not words, just fear, given voice. "You're safe," Cole told her. "I promise." "You're safe now." He had no idea if that was true, but some promises you make anyway. The ranch appeared on the horizon just as the sun began its descent toward the western peaks. Not much to look at. A 2-room cabin, a barn that needed repair, a corral with 3 horses, and a milk cow. But it was solid. It was his. And right now, it was sanctuary. Cole carried the girl inside, laid her on his own bed. The only bed. He'd sleep in the barn tonight if he had to. Hell, he'd sleep standing up if it meant keeping her safe. He built up the fire in the stove-heated water-soaked clean rags. Gently, carefully, he cleaned her face, washed away the dust and dried tears. Her features emerged delicate and young. She had freckles across her nose, a small scar on her chin, old well-healed. She'd been loved once. Someone had cared for this child. What happened to them, Cole made broth from jerked beef and potatoes. Simple food, easy to digest. When it was ready, he sat beside the bed and spooned tiny amounts between her lips. Most of it dribbled down her chin. Some went down. Enough, maybe. As the sun set and shadows filled the cabin, her eyes opened. Real awareness this time. She looked at him, at the room, at the bowl in his hands. Fear flashed across her face. She tried to sit up, gasped at the pain in her muscles. "Easy," Cole said. He set the bowl aside, held up both hands. "You're safe. My name is Cole Garrett. This is my ranch. You're safe here." She stared at him. Her eyes were brown, he saw now, dark and deep and far too old for her age. "Where is he?" Her voice was a rasp, barely more than whisper. "Where's my uncle?" "I don't know who your uncle is," Cole said honestly. "I found you in the desert. You were alone." She searched his face, looking for the lie. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her, because some of the tension left her small shoulders. "My name is Annie," she said. "Annie Fletcher. Annie." Cole nodded. Can you tell me what happened? She could, and she did. The story came out in fragments, pieces of broken glass she tried to fit back together. Her parents. Her father, Daniel Fletcher, a surveyor. Her mother, Grace, a school teacher before marriage. They'd lived in a cabin 30 miles northeast near Thunder Basin. Good people. Kind people. A week ago, they'd gotten sick. Both of them at the same time. Fever, vomiting, terrible pain. It came on fast. Too fast. Within 3 days, they were dead. Annie's voice didn't shake when she said it. That scared Cole more than anything else. A child who'd cried all her tears already. Her Uncle Vernon had shown up at the funeral. Her father's brother. Annie had never liked him. Something about his eyes, she said. The way they looked at things like he was adding up what they were worth. The night after they buried her parents, Annie couldn't sleep. She'd gotten up for water and heard voices. Vernon and 2 men she didn't know. They were in her father's study. They were talking about a map, Annie said. My father had made a map. A survey map of gold claims in the Black Hills. He hadn't filed it yet. Hadn't told anyone about it. Cole's expression didn't change, but his mind was racing. A gold map. Unfiled claims. That would be worth a fortune. Vernon said they needed to find it, Annie continued. And they needed to make sure I didn't cause problems. One of the men laughed, said it would be easy, make it look like an accident. A little girl, grief-stricken, wanders into the desert. She stopped, swallowed hard. I didn't wait to hear more. I took my father's horse and rode. I rode until the horse couldn't run any more. Then I walked, and then I found you, Cole finished. Annie nodded. Her eyes met his, and in them he saw a question. The same question every frightened creature asks when cornered. Can I trust you? Cole thought about his sister. Lucy. 9 years old when the fever took her. He'd been 15, old enough to feel responsible, too young to save her. He'd held her hand while she died. Made her a promise. Told her he'd always protect the ones who couldn't protect themselves. He'd failed her. Failed his mother, who died 6 months later from a heart that couldn't stand losing another child. He'd carried that failure through the war, through every battle, through every night when sleep wouldn't come. He wouldn't fail again. You can stay here as long as you need, Cole said. Tomorrow we'll ride into town, talk to the marshal, get this sorted proper. Annie's eyes welled up, but she blinked the tears away. You believe me. Every word. She let out a breath she'd been holding for what must have felt like forever. Then she did something that nearly broke Cole's heart. She smiled. Small, fragile, but real. I'm hungry, she said. Cole almost laughed. Well, that's a good sign. Think you can handle some real food. I can handle anything. He believed her. Over bread and beans, Annie proved she was more than just a frightened child. She was smart, sharp. She told him details about her father's work, about the land surveys, about how her father had taught her to read maps and recognize landmarks. Can you draw? Cole asked. Draw the area where your uncle might be searching. Without hesitation, Annie took the charcoal he offered and began sketching on the back of an old wanted poster. Her lines were confident, precise. She marked the cabin where she'd lived, the water sources, the likely routes someone might take. Cole watched, impressed. Your father taught you well. He said a good mind was better than a fast horse. Annie paused, looked up. He was wrong, though. That horse saved me. Your pa was right, Cole said gently. The horse got you part way. Your mind got you the rest. Something shifted in Annie's expression, a small thawing in that frozen grief. Then she winced, shifted her weight. Her right ankle, Cole noticed, was swollen. Let me see that, he said. Annie hesitated, then extended her leg. Cole examined the ankle carefully, sprained, not broken. She'd been walking on it for God knows how long. I can wrap it, Annie said. My father taught me. You take strips of cloth, wind them tight, but not too tight, start at the toes and work up. Keeps the swelling down. You sure? I'm sure. Cole handed her clean bandages and watched as she wrapped her own ankle with practiced efficiency. 9 years old and already more capable than half the ranch hands he'd known. When she finished, she looked up at him. Do you have a gun? The question caught him off guard. I do? Can I see it? Cole retrieved his Winchester from above the door, unloaded it, checked it twice, then handed it to Annie. She held it with surprising comfort, sighting down the barrel, testing the weight. My father taught me to shoot, she said. Said every person should know how to protect themselves. Smart man, your father. Annie handed the rifle back. Can you teach me to shoot better? Maybe. When this is over. When what's over? When your uncle stops looking for you. Annie's face went very still. He won't stop. Not ever. Not until he finds that map. Then we'll make sure he doesn't find it. Cole paused. Do you know where it is? Annie touched her chest just above her heart. For a moment Cole thought she meant it metaphorically. Then he saw the small bulge beneath her dress, something on a chain around her neck. "My father gave me a locket," she said. "My mother's. Inside is a photograph. And behind the photograph, the map." She nodded. "Not the whole thing, just the part that matters. The location of the richest claim. He drew it small in code. He said if anything ever happened to him, this would make sure I was taken care of." Cole felt the weight of that responsibility settle on his shoulders. This child carried a fortune around her neck and a death sentence. "We'll keep it safe," he promised, "and we'll keep you safe." Annie studied him for a long moment. Then she reached up and unclasped the chain. The locket fell into her palm, silver and delicate. She held it out to Cole. "You keep it," she said. "Safer with you." "Annie, I can't. Please?" Her voice was small. "If he comes, if he finds me, I don't want him to get it. Ever." Cole took the locket. It was warm from her skin. Inside he saw the photograph, a woman with Annie's eyes, smiling, and behind it, barely visible tiny lines of ink. "I'll guard this with my life," Cole said. "I know." How she knew, Cole couldn't say, but the trust in her eyes was absolute. They talked a while longer, about small things, normal things. Annie asked about the ranch, about the horses, about whether Cole had family. He told her about the war, about coming home to find his mother dead and the ranch barely standing, about rebuilding alone. "Don't you get lonely?" Annie asked. "Sometimes, but lonely's better than—" He stopped. "Better than what?" "Better than letting people down." Annie tilted her head, considering. "That's sad, maybe. My father used to say the only way to never fail is to never try, and that's the biggest failure of all." Cole smiled despite himself. "Your father was a wise man. He was the best man." Annie's voice caught. "Do you think he knew about Uncle Vernon?" "I think he suspected something. That's why he gave you the locket. And my mother, she loved you. That's all that matters." Annie nodded. Her eyelids were drooping. Exhaustion was catching up now that the adrenaline had worn off. "You should sleep," Cole said. "Real sleep. You're safe here. Promise?" "I promise." She settled back onto the pillow, her small body finally relaxing. Within minutes, her breathing evened out. Cole sat in the chair by the fire Winchester across his lap and watched her sleep. Outside, the desert night was silent except for the wind and the occasional coyote call. He thought about promises, about the ones he'd broken and the ones he'd kept, about Lucy dead 18 years now, about the vow he'd made to her memory. Protect those who can't protect themselves. He'd failed once, he wouldn't fail again. Dawn was still an hour away when Cole heard the horses, 3 riders coming fast from the northeast. He was at the window instantly, rifle ready. In the dim pre-dawn light, he could make out shapes. Men on horseback heading straight for the ranch. Annie stirred. "What is it? Stay in the bed, don't make a sound." She went still, eyes wide, but trusting. The riders slowed as they approached. Cole recognized the lead horse, a big roan gelding, expensive-looking, not a working ranch horse, a show horse, the kind a man with money would ride. They stopped 20 yards from the cabin. The leader dismounted. He was tall, well-dressed in a suit too fine for ranch country, dark hair going silver at the temples, handsome in a cold way. Cole opened the door, stepped out onto the porch. Winchester held casual but ready. "Can I help you?" His voice was flat, giving nothing away. The man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "I hope so. My name is Vernon Fletcher. I'm looking for my niece, 9 years old, dark hair. She's been missing since yesterday. We're desperately worried." Cole's expression didn't change. "Haven't seen any children? Just me out here." Vernon's smile thinned. "Are you certain she was very upset? Lost her parents recently. Her mind, well, she might not be thinking clearly." "Like I said, haven't seen anyone." Vernon looked past Cole toward the cabin. "Would you mind if we looked around, just to be sure?" "I would mind." The 2 men behind Vernon shifted in their saddles, hands drifting toward gun belts. Cole's grip on the Winchester tightened, subtle but unmistakable. Vernon held up a hand, stopping his men. "No need for trouble. We're all civilized here." "Then you'll understand when I ask you to leave my property." Vernon's eyes went hard. The mask slipped just for a second, and Cole saw what Annie had seen. Something cold, something calculating. "This is beautiful land," Vernon said, changing tactics. "I heard you've had some trouble recently. Rustlers, wasn't it? News travels fast. Small territory. Everyone knows everyone's business." Vernon looked around, assessing. "A man alone on a ranch this size. That's dangerous. All sorts of things could happen. Fires, stampedes, accidents." The threat was clear as daylight. Cole took 1 step forward. His voice dropped quiet and deadly. If you're making threats, make them plain. I don't care for snake talk. Vernon's smile returned, but there was no warmth in it. No threats, Mr. Garrett, just observations. The frontier is a dangerous place. A man should be careful. I am careful. Good. Vernon mounted his horse. If you do see my niece, I'd appreciate word. I'm staying at the hotel in Willow Creek. The girl means everything to me. I'm sure she does. Vernon tipped his hat, a mockery of politeness. Then he turned his horse and rode away, his 2 men following. Cole stood on the porch watching until they disappeared over the ridge. Only then did he allow himself to breathe. Behind him, the cabin door creaked open. Annie stood there, face pale but composed. That was him, she said. That was Uncle Vernon. I know. He'll be back. I know that, too. Annie walked to Cole's side, looked out at the empty landscape where the riders had vanished. Why are you helping me? You don't know me. This isn't your fight. Cole thought about his answer, about Lucy, about promises kept and broken, about the man he'd tried to become after the war and the man he actually was. A long time ago, he said finally, I made a promise to someone I loved, to protect people who needed protecting. I failed her, but I won't fail you. Annie looked up at him. In her eyes he saw the weight of everything she'd lost, and something else, something fragile and precious. Hope. Thank you, she whispered. Cole placed his hand on her shoulder, gentle. Get your things together. When the sun's up, we're riding to town. Time to get the law involved. What if they don't believe me? Then we'll make them believe you. Annie nodded. She started to turn back inside, then stopped. From her pocket she pulled something out. A small medallion on a leather cord. St. Christopher, patron saint of travelers. It was old, worn smooth. This was my father's, she said. He wore it always. After he died, I kept it. She held it out to Cole. Annie, I can't. My father would want you to have it. For luck. For protection. She pressed it into his hand. Please. Cole looked at the medallion. It was almost identical to one his sister Lucy had worn. Same saint, same style. The coincidence felt like something more, like Providence. I'll keep it safe, he said, like I'll keep you safe. I know you will. And in that moment, watching the sun rise over the Wyoming high desert, Cole Garrett understood that everything had changed. 3 days ago, he'd been a man alone, comfortable in his solitude, asking nothing from the world and giving less. Now, he was a guardian, a protector, a father, whether he'd planned it or not. Some promises you keep because they're easy, others because they define who you are. This was the second kind. And Cole Garrett had never broken a promise he truly meant. He wouldn't start now. The plan had been simple. Wait until dawn ride to Willow Creek, talk to the marshal, get the law involved before Vernon could make another move. Vernon had other plans. Cole woke to the smell of smoke. Not the clean smell of a cooking fire or a lantern burning low. This was wrong. Thick. Chemical. The smell of kerosene and bad intentions. He was on his feet before his eyes fully opened, Winchester in hand. Through the window he saw the glow, orange light dancing against the barn walls. Fire. Annie. His voice was sharp. Get up. Now. She was already awake, sitting bolt upright in the bed. Fear written across her face, but no panic. Good. Panic got people killed. The barn, she asked. Yes, but they're not trying to burn us out. They're making sure we can't ride. Cole was already moving, pulling on his boots, checking his ammunition. Get dressed. Fast. Outside, men's voices, laughter. The crack of breaking wood. Cole went to the far corner of the cabin, pushed aside the trunk that sat there. Beneath it, hidden in the floor, was a trapdoor. He'd built it years ago, back when Sioux raiding parties still came through, an escape route that led to a tunnel emerging 50 yards away in a wash gully. Down, he said. Don't argue. And he didn't. She climbed into the darkness without hesitation. Cole grabbed a saddlebag, threw in ammunition, jerky his canteen. The locket with its hidden map was already around his neck. He followed Annie down, pulled the trapdoor shut above them. The tunnel was narrow, dirt-walled, shored up with rough timber. Cole had to crouch. Annie could almost walk upright. They moved fast, feeling their way in the blackness. Behind them, muffled by earth, came the sound of breaking glass. Voices louder now. Boots on wooden floorboards. Search it, someone said, Vernon's voice. Every corner, she's got to be here somewhere. Place is empty, boss, another voice answered. Just one bed. Looks like he lit out. Then burn it. Burn it all. Cole's jaw tightened, but he kept moving. The ranch could be rebuilt. Annie couldn't be brought back from the dead. The tunnel ended in a tangle of brush and creosote bushes. Cole pushed through, first scanning for threats. Clear. He pulled Annie up beside him. They were in the gully, just as he'd planned. Above them, over the ridge, the sky glowed orange. His ranch was burning. I'm sorry, Annie whispered. Don't be. Wood and nails. We're alive. That's what matters. A gunshot cracked the night, then another. Vernon's men firing into the cabin, making sure no one was hiding inside. We need to move, Cole said. There's a canyon a mile east. We can lose them there. I know a faster way. Annie pointed south toward what looked like solid rock face. There's a pass. My father showed me once. It cuts through the ridge, comes out near Widow's Creek. Cole looked at her, 9 years old, and already thinking 2 steps ahead. Lead the way. They ran. The desert at night was a different country. Cold where the day had been scorching, full of sounds that daylight hid. Coyotes, wind through stone, the distant hoot of an owl. Annie moved like she'd been born to this land, sure-footed even in darkness. She led Cole through passages he'd never have seen on his own, between boulders along narrow ledges, through stands of juniper that smelled like Christmas and gin. Behind them shouts. Men had found the tunnel exit. Horses were being readied. There, Annie said, pointing. The pass was barely visible, a crack in the rock face that looked like shadow. They slipped through. On the other side the land opened up again, a series of descending terraces that led down to a creek bed. Cole heard the horses getting closer. 3 riders at least. Vernon wasn't taking chances this time. Keep moving, he told Annie. I'll slow them down. No. The word was small but absolute. Cole looked at her. In the moonlight her face was set, determined. I won't let you die for me, she said. Not planning on dying. Planning on making sure they think twice about following. He found a position behind a boulder that gave him a clear sight line to the pass. Checked his Winchester. 6 rounds loaded. He'd make them count. The first rider came through the narrow opening silhouetted against the sky behind him. Cole fired low, aiming for the horse's legs. The animal screamed and went down. The rider tumbled, cursing. The other 2 pulled up short. Smart. They'd learned. Garrett, Vernon's voice echoed off the rocks. There's no point to this. Give me the girl, and you can walk away. I have no quarrel with you. Cole didn't waste breath on an answer. He fired again. The bullet spanged off rock inches from where one of the men was taking cover. You're making this harder than it needs to be, Vernon called. Good, Cole muttered. Another shot, another near miss. He wasn't trying to kill anyone, just make them cautious. Buy time. Cole? Annie's hand on his arm. They're circling. 2 more riders coming from the north. He saw them, silhouettes against the stars. Vernon had brought more men than Cole thought. Run, he said. Follow the creek bed. I'll catch up. Together. Her voice left no room for argument. Cole grabbed her hand and they ran. The creek bed was dry this time of year, all sand and smooth river stones. Their boots made too much noise. Behind them the pursuit was getting organized, methodical. Vernon wasn't relying on speed anymore. He was setting up a net. Annie stumbled. Cole caught her before she fell. Her ankle, the sprained one, had given out. I'm fine, she gasped. Keep going. She wasn't fine, but they didn't have a choice. Cole scooped her up, carried her like she weighed nothing. His legs burned. His lungs burned. But he kept running. The creek bed opened into a wider canyon. Trees here, cottonwoods and willows, their leaves silver in the moonlight, and the sound of water. Real water. Widow's Creek was running. Cole splashed into it. Knee-deep, cold as mountain snow. He set Annie down on the far bank behind a fallen log. Stay low. Don't move unless I say. The riders were close now. Cole could hear them talking, coordinating. 3 coming down the creek bed, 2 more circling to cut off escape. 5 men. 1 Winchester. 6 rounds left. Not good odds. Then Annie touched his arm, pointed upstream. Through the trees, barely visible, was a path. An animal trail, narrow and winding, leading up and out of the canyon. That way, she whispered. It's steep, but it goes all the way to the mesa top. They can't follow on horses. Cole looked at her. How do you know this country so well? My father. He surveyed all through here. Took me with him sometimes. Taught me to read the land. Smart man, Daniel Fletcher. He'd given his daughter something better than gold. He'd given her knowledge. Can you climb with that ankle? Annie's jaw set. I can do anything I have to. Cole believed her. They moved into the trees, found the path. It was steep, just like Annie said. More of a game trail than anything humans were meant to use, but it was a way out. Behind them, the riders reached the creek. Voices angry now. They'd lost the trail. Fan out, Vernon ordered. They can't have gone far. Cole and Annie climbed. The path switched back and forth, gaining altitude fast. Annie's breath came hard. She was favoring her good ankle, using roots and rocks to pull herself up. Never complaining. Never stopping. Halfway up, Cole heard something that made his blood run cold. Horses. On the mesa top. Vernon had sent riders around. They were trapped between two forces. He looked at Annie, saw the fear in her eyes, but also something else. Defiance. "I won't let him take me," she said. "I'd rather jump." "No one's jumping, and no one's getting taken." Cole scanned the terrain. There 20 yards to the north, a tumble of boulders, big enough to hide behind. Defensible. They made it to the rocks just as the riders on the mesa top spotted them. Gunfire erupted. Bullets whined off stone. Cole returned fire. Precise. Controlled. Making every shot count. One of the riders went down, clutching his shoulder. Not dead. Cole didn't kill unless he had to, but wounded enough to be out of the fight. The other rider dismounted, took cover. A standoff. Below, the men in the canyon were climbing. Slower than Cole and Annie had, but coming. They had maybe 5 minutes before they were surrounded. "Annie," Cole said, his voice calm, despite everything. "That locket, the one with the map. Do you remember what it showed? Every detail. Good. Because if something happens to me, you run. You get to Willow Creek, you find Marshall Hayes. You tell him everything. Nothing's going to happen to you. Maybe not. But if it does, you promise me you'll run. Promise me you'll survive." Annie's eyes filled with tears, but her voice was steady. "I promise. But you have to promise me something, too." "What's that?" "Promise you won't give up. Promise you'll keep fighting." Cole looked at this small, fierce girl who'd lost everything and still had the courage to demand promises from a broken-down cowboy. He thought about Lucy, about the promise he'd made and failed to keep. Not this time. "I promise," he said. Then the world went quiet. Not silent, just quieter. The kind of quiet that comes before a storm breaks. The riders had stopped shooting, stopped advancing. Something had changed. Cole risked a look over the boulder. What he saw made no sense. 6 riders were coming up the canyon trail. But they weren't Vernon's men. These were ranchers. He recognized some of them, neighbors from 10-15 miles out. And leading them was a man on a big paint horse, white beard flowing like a prophet from the Old Testament. Thomas Copperfield. Red, everyone called him, the oldest working blacksmith in the territory. "Hold your fire, Garrett," Red's voice boomed across the canyon. "We're not here to fight you." Vernon stepped out from cover. "Copperfield, this is none of your concern." "The hell it isn't." Red dismounted, moved forward with the confidence of a man who'd outlived 3 wives and 2 territories. "That child you're chasing, her father, was my friend, best friend I ever had. And a Danny Fletcher told me more than once if anything ever happened to him, I was to make sure Vernon never got near his little girl. Daniel was my brother. Daniel was a good man. You're not. Everyone in 3 counties knows it." The other riders had spread out. Not threatening, just present. A wall of witnesses. Vernon's face twisted. "The girl is my blood, my responsibility. The girl is her own person, and from what I hear, she's got plenty to say about who poisoned her parents." The accusation hung in the air like gun smoke. Vernon's hand moved toward his gun. 3 rifles swung in his direction. He froze. "Now here's what's going to happen," Red said. His voice was casual, but there was steel underneath. "You and your boys are going to ride back to Willow Creek. Cole and the girl are going to do the same. And come morning, you're going to stand before Judge Reed and let the law sort this out, civilized-like. And if I refuse," Red smiled. It wasn't friendly. "Then we'll sort it out right here. Your choice." For a long moment, no one moved. The canyon held its breath. Then Vernon turned his horse. 3 days, he said. "The courthouse. We'll settle this legal." "That we will." Vernon and his men rode away, slowly, keeping their dignity. But they rode. When they were gone, Red looked up at the boulders where Cole and Annie were hidden. "You can come down now, Cole, and bring little Annie with you. I haven't seen that girl since she was knee-high to a grasshopper." They climbed down. Annie moved carefully on her bad ankle, but when she saw Red, her face transformed. The first real smile Cole had seen from her. "Mr. Red, there's my girl." Red knelt down, let Annie throw her arms around his neck. "Your daddy would be proud of how brave you've been." "He's dead." The words came out flat. Statement of fact. "I know, sweetheart, I know, but you're alive. And we're going to keep you that way." Red looked at Cole. "You did good, son. Danny would have liked you. Didn't do it for thanks." "I know that, too." Red stood, keeping one hand on Annie's shoulder. "But you're going to need help. Vernon's got money, got lawyers, got connections. What he doesn't have is the truth. But truth's a funny thing. Sometimes it needs defending. I'll defend it. You'll have help." Red gestured to the other riders. "Every man here knew Danny Fletcher. And every man here will stand with his daughter." One of the riders, a lean man with a scar across his cheek, spoke up. "My wife's sick, Mr. Garrett. Real sick. Doc Walsh says she's got maybe a month. But 2 years ago, Danny Fletcher rode 30 miles through a blizzard to bring us medicine when our youngest had the croup. Saved the boy's life. I owe him. I'll speak for his girl." Another rider nodded. "Danny helped me file my land claim. Wouldn't take a penny. Said neighbors help neighbors. I'll speak." One by one they pledged their support. Annie watched them, tears streaming down her face. Not sad tears, something else. Something like hope. When they'd finished, Red looked at Cole. "There's a woman in town, Sarah Bennett, runs the boarding house. She's good people. Annie can stay with her until the hearing. That'll look proper. Man alone with a child, some folks might talk. But a respectable widow, caring for an orphan. No one can say wrong about that," Cole wanted to argue. Wanted to keep Annie close where he could protect her. But Red was right. Appearances mattered, especially with the law involved. "If Annie agrees," he said. All eyes turned to the girl. She looked at Cole, then at Red, then back to Cole. "I'll stay with Mrs. Bennett," she said quietly. "But you have to promise you'll come and see me. Every day." "Every day," Cole agreed. Red clapped his hands together. "Then it's settled. We ride to Willow Creek. All of us make a show of it. Let Vernon know he's not dealing with one man on one ranch. He's dealing with a community." They rode together through the pre-dawn darkness. Annie sat in front of Cole on Dust, leaning back against his chest. Exhausted, but safe. The other riders formed a protective circle around them. As the sun rose, painting the desert in shades of gold and crimson, they crested the last ridge. Below, Willow Creek spread out along both sides of the water that gave it its name. Maybe 200 souls called it home. Not much by civilization standards, but out here, it was everything. "There," Annie said, pointing to a white-painted building near the church. "That's Mrs. Bennett's house, I remember. My mother and I stayed there once when we came to town for supplies." The building was neat, well kept. Lace curtains in the windows, a garden out front with late summer flowers still blooming. Sarah Bennett was waiting on the porch when they arrived. She was maybe 40, with gray threading through dark hair and eyes that had seen enough of life to be kind without being foolish. Red made the introductions, explained the situation. Sarah listened without interrupting her gaze, moving from Annie to Cole and back again. When Red finished, Sarah stepped forward. She crouched down to Annie's level. "I knew your mother," she said gently. "Grace was one of the finest women I ever met. And your father was a good man. I'm sorry for your lost child." Annie's lip trembled. "Thank you, ma'am. You're welcome to stay here as long as you need. I've got a room upstairs, looks out over the garden. I think you'll like it." "I don't have any money." "Didn't ask for any," Sarah smiled. "Your father helped my late husband once when we first came to this territory. Never charged us a cent for surveying our land claim. I've been waiting years to return the favor." She held out her hand. After a moment, Annie took it. Sarah looked at Cole. "You'll want to see her settled, if that's all right." "More than all right. Come on in." The inside of the boarding house smelled like bread and lavender. Clean, comfortable, safe. Sarah led them upstairs to a small room with blue curtains and a quilt on the bed. "Bathroom's down the hall," Sarah said. "I'll draw you a bath, child. And I think I have some clothes that might fit. My daughter's outgrown them, but they should suit you fine." Annie looked overwhelmed. Too much kindness after too much cruelty. Sarah seemed to understand. "Take your time. When you're ready, come down to the kitchen. I'll have food waiting." She left them alone. Cole knelt down, met Annie's eyes. "You all right?" "I don't know." Her voice was small. "Everything feels strange." "I know, but you're safe here. Sarah's good people. You'll come back. Every day. I promised." Annie threw her arms around his neck, held on tight. Cole returned the embrace, this fierce little girl who'd walked through hell and come out standing. "You're going to be fine," he whispered. "Better than fine. We're going to win, right at the courthouse." Cole pulled back, looked at her seriously. "I don't know, but I know we'll fight, and I know you're not alone anymore. Neither are you." The simple truth of it hit Cole in the chest. She was right. For the first time in years, he wasn't alone. He had allies. He had purpose. He had something worth fighting for. "Get cleaned up," he said. "Rest. Tomorrow we start preparing." "For what?" "For war." Cole smiled grimly. "The legal kind." He left her there in that blue room with sunlight streaming through the windows. As he walked downstairs, he heard water running, Sarah drawing the promised bath. In the kitchen, Red was waiting with a cup of coffee. "She's a strong one," the old blacksmith said. "Strongest person I've ever met." Cole accepted the coffee, drank it black and bitter. "You know Vernon won't give up easy." "I know. And you know he'll play dirty." "I'm counting on it." Red raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "Because every dirty move he makes, he shows his true colors. And when we get in front of that judge, I want everyone to see exactly what kind of man Vernon Fletcher really is. Risky. He could win. Then I'll take her and run. Canada maybe, or Mexico, somewhere the law won't find us. That's no life for a child. Cole set down his coffee cup. Neither is being murdered by her uncle for a gold map. I'll do what I have to do. Red studied him for a long moment. Danny would have liked you, he said again. You've got the same stubborn streak he had, the same honor. Honor doesn't win fights. No, but it's worth having anyway. Upstairs they heard Annie laugh, just a small sound, but real. Sarah must have said something funny. The sound did something to Cole, unlocked something in his chest that had been frozen since Lucy died. He'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone depending on him, someone who believed he could be better than he was. It terrified him. It made him stronger. 3 days until the hearing, Red said. We better get ready. Already thinking about it. Good, because Vernon's thinking about it too, and he's not going to fight fair. And Cole looked out the window toward the edge of town where the desert began. Somewhere out there, Vernon was planning his next move. Let him plan. Cole had made a promise, and promises were the only currency that mattered. He wouldn't fail. Not this time. Not ever again. 3 days until the hearing. 3 days to build a case that would stand against money lawyers and a system that didn't often favor lone cowboys over established men. Marshal William Hayes was a man who'd seen the worst humanity had to offer and still believed in the law. 55 years old, with iron-gray hair and a mustache that had gone white on one side where a knife scar ran through it. He sat across from Cole in his office, Annie between them, and listened without interrupting. When they finished, he leaned back in his chair. It creaked under his weight. That's a serious accusation, he said. Poisoning. Murder. You understand what you're claiming? I understand, Annie said. Her voice didn't waver. And I can prove it. Hayes looked at her. Really looked. Cole had seen that expression before, the moment when an adult stopped seeing a child and started seeing a witness. How? Hayes asked. Annie closed her eyes. Cole had learned this about her. When she needed to remember something precisely, she shut out the world and went inside her own mind. The night before my parents died, she said, eyes still closed, I heard Uncle Vernon in my father's study. He was talking to 2 men, Clay and Dutch, he called them. They were looking for something. Vernon said, the claim documents have to be in the safe. Once we have those, we can file before anyone knows the old man's dead. Hayes leaned forward. What safe? Annie's eyes opened. My father had a safe, built into the wall behind his desk, hidden by a painting of the Tetons. Only family knew about it. Did Vernon find it? I don't know. I ran before I could hear more. Hayes looked at Cole. The Fletcher cabin? It's still standing. Last I knew. Then we need to search it. Legal-like, with a warrant. Hayes stood. Judge Reed owes me a favor. I'll have paper by this afternoon. Vernon will have cleaned it out by now, Cole said. Maybe. But men get careless when they think they've won. And Vernon thinks he's already won. Hayes reached for his hat. Meet me at the Fletcher place at sundown. Bring the girl. She'll need to show us where things are. After Hayes left, Cole and Annie sat in the office. Through the window they could see Willow Creek going about its business. A freight wagon rattling past. Children playing in the street. Normal life continuing like the world wasn't balanced on the edge of a knife. Tell me about the courtroom, Annie said suddenly. What will it be like? Cole considered lying, making it sound easy. But she deserved the truth. It'll be hard, he said. Vernon's lawyer will try to make you look like a liar, like you're confused or scared or making things up. I'm not making anything up. I know. But he'll try to make the judge think you are. He'll ask you questions designed to trip you up, make you contradict yourself. Annie's hands tightened in her lap. What should I do? Tell the truth. Simple and plain. Don't add details unless you're asked. Don't get angry even when he's trying to make you angry. And remember. Cole leaned forward. You're the bravest person I've ever met. You walked through the desert alone. You survived. Talking in a courtroom is nothing compared to that. She smiled. Small, but real. You really think I'm brave? I know you are. My father used to say courage isn't not being scared, it's being scared and doing it anyway. Your father was a wise man. I miss him. The words came out broken. I miss both of them. Every day. Cole reached across, took her hand. It was so small in his, fragile, but he could feel the strength in it too. They'd be proud of you, he said. So proud. Annie squeezed his hand, held on, and for a moment in that quiet office, they were just 2 people who'd lost too much, holding on to what they had left. The moment broke when Sarah Bennett appeared in the doorway. There you are, she said. Annie, come along. We need to get you fitted for proper clothes. Can't have you going to court looking like you've been dragged through the desert." "I was dragged through the desert?" Sarah smiled. "All the more reason to show them you survived it with dignity." As Annie stood to leave, she looked back at Cole. "You'll be there at my father's house. I'll be there. Promise?" "Promise." She left with Sarah, and Cole was alone. He spent the afternoon preparing, checked his Winchester, cleaned his revolver, made sure his horse was fed and ready. Small tasks, practical tasks, the kind that kept his hands busy and his mind from wandering to all the ways this could go wrong. At 4 o'clock, Doc Henry Walsh stopped by the marshal's office. He was a thin man, late 50s, with the permanently tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much suffering and not enough healing. "Heard you might need a medical opinion," he said. Cole shook his hand. "That obvious. Small town. Everyone knows everything." Walsh sat down without being asked. "I examined Daniel and Grace Fletcher after they died. Something didn't sit right with me, the symptoms, the speed of it. But I had no proof, just a feeling. And now I'm willing to testify that their deaths were consistent with arsenic poisoning. Won't prove Vernon did it, but it'll establish that they were murdered." "That's something." Walsh was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I delivered Annie 9 years ago. Coldest winter I can remember. Grace was in labor for 18 hours. But when that baby finally came screaming and red and alive, I've never seen two people happier than Daniel and Grace Fletcher." His voice roughened. "They were good people. They deserved better than what they got. And that little girl deserves justice. She'll get it. See that she does." Walsh left, and Cole sat there feeling the weight of all these promises, all these people who'd loved Annie's parents, who remembered, who cared. He wouldn't let them down. Sundown found them at the Fletcher cabin. It sat in a small valley sheltered by cottonwoods with a creek running past. A good place, the kind of place a family could be happy. The door hung open. Someone had been here recently, searched it by the look of things. Furniture overturned, books scattered, pictures torn from the walls. Annie stood in the doorway, frozen, seeing her home violated like this. Cole put a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to do this," he said. "Yes, I do." She walked inside. Marshal Hayes followed, then Cole. The cabin was bigger than it looked from outside. 4 rooms, a real house, not just shelter. "The study," Annie said. Her voice was steady. "This way." The study was the worst of it. Desk drawers pulled out and emptied. Papers everywhere. And on the wall, a torn painting. The Tetons, just like Annie had said. Behind it, a safe door stood open. Empty. "He found it," Annie whispered. Hayes examined the safe. "Recently. The scratches on the lock are fresh. He used tools. Probably brought a locksmith." "So we've got nothing," Cole said. "Maybe not." Annie was moving around the room, touching things. A bookshelf, a chair, the windowsill. Then she knelt down by the fireplace, reached up into the chimney. When her hand came back, it was covered in soot and holding a small metal box. "My father's emergency box," she said. "He told me if anything ever happened, look here first." Hayes took the box carefully, opened it. Inside were papers, land claims, survey notes, and a small brown bottle, half empty. The marshal held it up to the light. On the label, barely visible, was printed, "Arsenic. Rat poison." "Son of a bitch," Hayes breathed. "He kept it," Annie said. "My father knew. He knew Vernon was dangerous. He kept evidence." There was more. A letter written in Daniel Fletcher's hand. Hayes read it aloud. "If you're reading this, I'm likely dead. And if I'm dead, my brother Vernon probably had something to do with it. I've suspected for months that he's been trying to gain access to my survey work. There's gold in the Black Hills, more than anyone knows. I've documented the richest veins. Vernon wants that information. He'll kill for it. Protect my daughter. Don't let him near her. Signed, Daniel Fletcher. Witnessed by Thomas Copperfield." The words hung in the air like a ghost speaking. "This changes everything," Hayes said. "With this letter with the arsenic, we've got a case, a real case." Cole felt something loosen in his chest. Hope. Dangerous thing, hope. But there it was. They left the cabin as full dark settled over the valley. Annie rode with Cole, her head resting against his back, tired, but not beaten. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for believing me, for not giving up. I made you a promise." "I know, but still, thank you." Back in Willow Creek, lights glowed in windows. The saloon was doing steady business. And in the hotel, in a room on the second floor, Vernon Fletcher sat with a man in an expensive suit. Marcus Blackwood, lawyer from Denver. He'd defended claim jumpers, cattle rustlers, even a man accused of murder. Won most of his cases through intimidation and technicalities. "The hearing is in 2 days," Vernon said. "What do we need?" Blackwood smiled. It was the smile of a snake that had just spotted a mouse. We need to destroy Garrett's credibility, make him look like a drifter, a man with questionable motives, a bachelor taking in a young girl. The implications alone will make the judge uncomfortable. That's it. We also need to discredit the child, make her seem unstable, grief-stricken, unable to distinguish between reality and imagination. Vernon poured himself whiskey. She's 9 years old. Exactly. The judge will be sympathetic. But sympathy isn't custody. We paint Garrett as unsuitable, paint the girl as unreliable, and we present you as the only family she has left, the proper choice. What about the accusations, the poisoning? Blackwood waved a dismissive hand. Hearsay. The ravings of a traumatized child. Without proof, it's nothing. Vernon drank. He'd searched the cabin thoroughly, taken everything from the safe, burned most of it. The claim documents were already filed under his name. By the time anyone sorted out the legal mess, he'd have sold the rights and be long gone. There's one more thing, he said. What's that? Sarah Bennett, the woman housing the girl. She needs to be reminded where her loyalties should lie. Blackwood's smile widened. I'm sure something can be arranged. That night, fire came to the boarding house. Not the building itself. Vernon wasn't stupid enough for that, but the shed behind it, where Sarah kept her winter wood, where she stored preserves and supplies. The flames lit up the street. People came running with buckets. They saved the main house, but the shed was gone, and on the door of the boarding house, someone had nailed a note. Accidents happen, especially to those who involve themselves in other people's business. Sarah read it by lamplight, her hands shaking. Annie stood beside her, face pale. I'm sorry, the girl whispered. This is because of me. Hush now. Sarah's voice was firm, but Cole could hear the fear underneath. This is because of evil men doing evil things. But the next morning, when Marshal Hayes came to take Sarah's statement, she was different, quieter, scared. I can't testify, she said. I'm sorry, but I can't. Mrs. Bennett, Hayes said gently, we need witnesses, people who can speak to Annie's character, to Cole's. I know what you need, but I have a daughter. She's in Denver at school. If something happened to me, she'd have no one. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, but I can't risk it. After she left, Annie sat in the marshal's office, silent, small. It's my fault, she said finally. Everyone who helps me gets hurt. No. Cole knelt down beside her. It's Vernon's fault. He's the one doing this. He's the one using fear as a weapon. But people are scared. Mrs. Bennett. How many others? Too many, Cole thought, but didn't say. By noon, 2 more witnesses had withdrawn. The ranchers who'd pledged support suddenly remembered business in other territories. The woman from the general store who'd been willing to testify about Vernon's character decided it wasn't her place to judge. Fear spread like poison. By evening, only 3 people still stood with them, Marshal Hayes, Doc Walsh, and Red. They gathered in the marshal's office. The mood was grim. He's systematically destroying our case, Hayes said. And he's doing it legal. Can't arrest a man for making people nervous. We still have the letter, Doc Walsh pointed out. Daniel's testimony from beyond the grave. It's something. But without corroborating witnesses, a good lawyer will tear it apart, claim it's a forgery, claim Daniel was mentally unstable. So what do? Red asked. Everyone looked at Cole. He stood at the window watching night fall over Willow Creek, watching people hurry home before dark, watching fear win. We fight anyway, he said. With what? Hayes' voice was tired. We've got no witnesses, no proof beyond a letter that might not hold up, and Vernon's got a lawyer who's never lost a case like this. We've got the truth. The truth isn't always enough. Cole turned to face them. Then we make it enough. Annie tells her story, every detail, every moment. We let the judge see her, really see her, and we trust that he's the kind of man who recognizes truth when he hears it. That's a hell of a gamble, Red said. It's the only gamble we've got. Annie had been silent through all of this. Now she spoke. Her voice was small, but clear. I'm not scared of Vernon anymore. I'm not scared of his lawyer, or his threats, or his money. She looked at each of them in turn. My father taught me that truth is the strongest thing there is, that it might bend, might take time, but it never breaks. She stood up, 9 years old and carrying the weight of the world, but standing. I'll tell my story, and if the judge doesn't believe me, if he gives me to Vernon anyway, at least I'll have told it. At least I'll have fought. Doc Walsh wiped his eyes. Red cleared his throat roughly. Hayes just nodded, and Cole felt something fierce and proud rise in his chest. This girl, this impossibly brave girl. Then that's what we do, he said. 2 days from now, we walk into that courthouse, and we tell the truth, all of it, and we let the chips fall where they may. And if we lose? Red asked. Cole looked at Annie. She looked back at him. And in her eyes he saw the same determination he felt. Then we run, Cole said quietly. Canada, Mexico, somewhere they'll never find us, because I made a promise, and I keep my promises. The room was quiet. Outside the wind picked up. Storm coming. You could feel it in the air. Hayes stood. I'll prepare the paperwork, present what evidence we have, make it official. I'll round up what medical testimony I can put together, Doc Walsh said. Document the poisoning, make it scientific. Red just looked at Cole. And you, I'll do what I do best, stand my ground. They left these three allies, these three men who believed when belief was dangerous. Annie and Cole were alone. Are you really going to run if we lose? She asked. If I have to. That would make you an outlaw. Better an outlaw than a man who breaks his word. Annie thought about that. Then she smiled, just a little. My father would have said the same thing. He sounds like he was a good man. The best. Her smile faded. Do you think we'll win? Really, Cole could have lied, could have made it sound certain, but he'd promised her truth always. I don't know, he said, but I know we'll fight. And I know you're not alone. Whatever happens, you're not alone. Annie crossed the room, put her small hand in his large one. Neither are you, she said. And standing there in that office with a storm building outside and a battle looming ahead, Cole Garrett understood something he'd forgotten in the years since the war. He understood what it meant to have something worth fighting for. Not land, not pride, not even honor. But this connection, this promise, this fierce, impossible hope that maybe, just maybe, truth could stand against power, that love could stand against fear. 2 days until the courthouse. 2 days until they'd know if promises were enough. Cole looked down at Annie, at her upturned face full of trust and determination. They had to be. They had to be enough, because he'd promised. And Cole Garrett never broke a promise he meant. Not anymore. Sunday morning broke clear and cold. The kind of cold that promised winter wasn't far behind. Cole stood on the porch of the boarding house, watching the town wake up. Church bells would ring in an hour. People would gather, pray, pretend the world was simple, and God was listening. He'd stopped believing in simple a long time ago, but maybe God was worth one more try. You're coming to service. Sarah Bennett appeared in the doorway, surprised. Didn't take you for a church-going man. I'm not. But Annie asked. Sarah's expression softened. That girl's got more faith than most adults I know. After everything she's been through. Maybe that's why she's got it. Nothing left to lose but hope. The church was already half full when they arrived. Willow Creek wasn't a large town, but its people took their Sundays seriously. Cole felt the eyes on them as they walked down the center aisle. Felt the whispers that stopped when they got too close. Annie held his hand tight. She wore a dress Sarah had given her, blue with white lace at the collar. She looked like any other little girl, except for her eyes. Those eyes had seen too much. They took a seat near the back. Sarah sat beside Annie. Red was already there, 3 rows up, white beard freshly combed. He turned, caught Cole's eye, nodded. The service began. Reverend Samuel Cross was a tall man, thin as a rail, with a voice that could shake rafters when he wanted it to. He read from Matthew, something about suffering little children. The words washed over Cole. He'd heard them before, in field hospitals, at Lucy's funeral. Words that were supposed to comfort, but never quite did. Then Cross set down his Bible, looked out at his congregation. I want to talk about courage today, he said. Not the loud kind, not the kind that gets written up in newspapers, the quiet kind, the kind that shows up when it's easier to walk away. Cole felt Annie shift beside him. We've all heard about the Fletcher child, Cross continued, about the accusations, about the hearing coming up, and I know some of you are scared of taking sides, scared of what might happen if you speak up. The church was silent. You could hear breathing. But I want you to think about something. What kind of people are we? What kind of town is this? Are we the kind who protect the innocent, or are we the kind who look away because it's convenient? A woman in the 3rd row stood up. Cole recognized her. Abigail Holt. She'd been one of the worst gossips when he first brought Annie to town. Had spread rumors about impropriety, about a bachelor and a child. Now she turned to face the congregation. Her face was red, ashamed. I want to say something, she announced. Her voice shook. I've been a fool, a cruel, judgmental fool. She looked directly at Annie. I said terrible things about you, child, about Mr. Garrett. I didn't know you, didn't know the truth. I just assumed, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Annie's eyes went wide. Sarah's hand found her shoulder. That little girl lost her parents, Abigail continued, and instead of showing her Christian charity, I showed her the worst of what people can be. Well, no more. She stood straighter. I'll testify. At the hearing. I'll tell Judge Reed that Cole Garrett is a good man doing a good thing. And if Vernon Fletcher wants to come after me for it, let him try. She sat down. The silence that followed was absolute. Then another person stood, a man Cole didn't know, rancher by the look of him. I'll testify, too. My wife's sick, real sick. But Danny Fletcher rode through a blizzard to bring us medicine 2 winters back. Saved our youngest. I owe him. I'll speak for his daughter. Another stood. Then another. Like a dam breaking. People Cole had never met. People who remembered Daniel Fletcher. Who'd been helped by him. Who owed him. One by one, they pledged their voices. Annie's hand was trembling in Cole's. He looked down at her. Tears were streaming down her face. But she was smiling. The first real, full smile he'd seen from her. They're not scared anymore, she whispered. No, they're not. After the service people gathered around Annie, touched her shoulder, told her stories about her father, about the time he'd helped survey a school site for free, about the time he'd testified against a crooked land agent, about the time he'd sat up all night with a dying child, reading stories keeping them company. Daniel Fletcher had been loved, and now his daughter was seeing it. Abigail Holt knelt down, took Annie's hands. Your mother and I weren't close friends, but I remember her. She was kind to everyone, even to bitter old women like me who didn't deserve it. She was the best mother, Annie said. The very best. I believe it, and she'd be proud of you. Standing up, speaking truth. That takes courage most grown people don't have. Annie hugged her, just threw her arms around this woman who'd hurt her and forgave everything in one gesture. Cole watched it happen and felt something crack in his chest. Something that had been frozen since Lucy died, since he'd decided that caring too much was the fastest way to get broken. Red appeared at his elbow. Good sermon today. Better than most. People are rallying. You see that? I see it. Means we've got a chance. A real chance. And Cole watched Annie surrounded by people who were choosing courage over fear. Maybe we do. That afternoon, while Annie helped Sarah in the kitchen, Cole and Red rode out to Marshal Hayes' office. They found him bent over paperwork, looking tired. Got something, Hayes said without preamble. Took some digging, but I found it. He pushed a ledger across the desk. Vernon Fletcher's financial records. Took a favor from a friend in Denver. Vernon's been gambling. Heavy. Lost $8,000 in the past 6 months. Cole whistled low. That's a fortune. That's a motive. He needs money. Fast. And his brother just happened to have a survey map worth more than that. Can you prove he knew about the map before Daniel died? Working on it. But look at this. Hayes pointed to a date. Vernon took out a loan 3 weeks before Daniel and Grace got sick, from a man in Denver known for lending to desperate people. The kind of loan that comes with threats if you don't pay. So he was already planning it, Red said. Looks that way. He knew about the gold. Knew Daniel hadn't filed the claims yet. Knew if he could get his hands on that map, he could file under his own name and sell the rights. That's cold-blooded. That's Vernon Fletcher. Cole studied the ledger. Numbers and dates. The arithmetic of murder. Will this hold up in court? Should. I've got documentation. Bank statements. Loan agreements, all legal. Hayes looked up. We're building a real case here, Cole. Between this Daniel's letter, the arsenic, and now we've got witnesses willing to testify about Vernon's character, we're not going in empty-handed anymore. Red grinned. I've been talking to the ranchers. Got 12 good men willing to stand up and vouch for you, Cole. Men who knew Danny, who knew Grace, who know what kind of people they were. Vernon's going to fight back, Cole said. Let him. The more he fights, the more desperate he looks, and desperate men make mistakes. That evening, as the sun set over the western peaks, Cole found Annie in the stable behind Sarah's boarding house. She was brushing down dust, the buckskin mare talking to the horse in that soft voice children use with animals. Thought I'd find you here, Cole said. Annie looked up. Mrs. Bennett said I could help with the horses. Is that all right? More than all right. You're good with them. She went back to brushing. Long, gentle strokes. The horse's eyes were half closed in contentment. My father taught me. He said animals know when you're being honest with them. They don't care about words, just intention. Smart man. He taught me a lot of things. Annie's voice went quiet. I wish he'd taught me how to do this. The courthouse. Facing Vernon? I don't know how. Cole entered the stall, leaned against the wall. You just tell the truth. That's all anyone can do. What if they don't believe me? Then they're fools. But I don't think Judge Reed is a fool. Annie set down the brush. Cole? Yeah. If we lose, if they make me go with Vernon, will you really run away with me? The question hung between them. heavy with implications. Yes, Cole said simply. That would make you an outlaw. Wouldn't be the first time I broke a law for the right reason. Annie studied him. My father used to say, there's law and there's justice. Sometimes they're the same thing. Sometimes they're not. Your father was right. She was quiet for a moment. Can I ask you something? Annie said. Anything. Tomorrow at the courthouse. What if I freeze? What if I can't speak? Cole knelt down beside her. You won't freeze. You know why. Why? Because you're the bravest person I know. You walked through the desert alone. You survived when most adults wouldn't have. Speaking truth in a courtroom, that's nothing compared to what you've already done. Annie touched the medallion hanging around his neck, the one she'd given him that first night at the ranch. You still wear it, she said softly. Every day. Your father's St. Christopher. It reminds me of the promise I made. What promise? To keep you safe. No matter what happens tomorrow, no matter what anyone says or does, I won't let them take you. Annie's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled through them. Thank you, Pa. The words slipped out naturally. She froze eyes wide like she wasn't sure she'd meant to say it. Cole's throat tightened. Say that again. Pa. Tentative. Testing. Yeah, sweetheart. She threw her arms around him. Cole held her tight, this child who was already his daughter in every way that mattered. We're going to win tomorrow, she whispered. We have to. We will. Together. They rode back to town in comfortable silence. The kind of silence that comes when words aren't necessary. When presence is enough. At the boarding house, Sarah was waiting on the porch. She smiled when she saw them. There you are. I was starting to worry. We were riding, Annie said. She slid down from Dust with new confidence. Cole taught me. Did he now? Well, you look like a natural. Annie kissed the mare's nose. Good night, Dust. Thank you for the lesson. Then she turned to Cole. For a moment, she just looked at him. Memorizing his face, maybe, holding on to this moment before everything changed. Good night, Cole. Good night, Annie. She went inside with Sarah. The door closed, and Cole was alone with his horse and his thoughts. He touched the medallion hanging around his neck now. St. Christopher, patron saint of travelers, of those who carried others across dangerous waters. Tomorrow they'd walk into that courthouse. Tomorrow they'd face Vernon and his expensive lawyer and a system that didn't always favor the righteous. Tomorrow they'd find out if truth was enough. Cole looked up at the stars, the same stars his sister Lucy had looked at, the same stars countless people had looked at while making impossible promises. He thought about the people who'd stood up today, who'd chosen courage, who'd decided that Annie Fletcher's life mattered more than their fear. He thought about Red and Hayes and Doc Walsh, about Abigail Holt and her public apology, about the ranchers pledging their voices, about Sarah Bennett, who'd taken Annie in despite the threats, and he thought about Annie herself, 9 years old, and braver than any soldier he'd fought beside. They weren't alone. Not anymore. Whatever happened tomorrow, they'd face it together. Cole led Dust to the stable, brushed her down, made sure she had feed and water. Simple tasks. Before heading to his room, Cole stopped by the tack room. From a hidden compartment beneath the feed bin, he pulled out a small wooden box. Inside were 2 lockets, nearly identical. One held Annie's mother's photograph with the real map folded behind it. Tiny, precise lines showing the richest gold deposits in the Black Hills, worth a fortune. The other held a different photograph, a woman who looked similar, but wasn't Grace Fletcher, and behind it a map Cole had drawn himself. Close enough to fool a quick glance, but the coordinates were wrong. Off by 50 miles in every direction. He'd spent 2 weeks on this forgery, learning Daniel Fletcher's handwriting, copying his style, making something that would pass inspection until someone actually tried to use it. Marshal Hayes had thought he was crazy. What if Vernon never gets his hands on either one? Hayes had asked. Then we've wasted some time. But if he does, if somehow he gets past us, I want him digging holes in empty hills while we get Annie somewhere safe. Smart insurance. The kind Daniel Fletcher himself might have approved. Cole placed the real locket back in its hiding spot. The fake went into his vest pocket. Tomorrow when they went to court, he'd wear it visible. Let Vernon see it. Let him think he knew where the treasure was. Sometimes the best defense was making your enemy believe they'd already won. Then he walked to the small room Hayes had let him use above the jail. He didn't sleep, just sat by the window watching the night pass, watching the moon arc across the sky, waiting for dawn, waiting for the battle that would decide everything. Somewhere in the darkness, Vernon Fletcher was waiting too, planning his final moves, preparing his lies. Let him plan. Cole had something Vernon didn't. He had the truth. He had allies. He had a little girl who believed in him. And he had a promise to keep. The medallion was warm against his chest. He touched it, felt the weight of it, the history. I won't fail her, Danny, he said to the darkness. To the ghost of the man who'd loved this child first, I swear it, I won't fail. The night didn't answer, but somewhere Cole liked to think Daniel Fletcher heard him, and somewhere his sister Lucy was watching, proud maybe, or at least understanding. Some promises you keep because they're easy, others because they define who you are. Dawn was coming, and with it, the reckoning. Cole Garrett had never been more ready for anything in his life. The courthouse stood at the center of Willow Creek like a monument to civilization's thin veneer. 2 stories of whitewashed wood and glass with a bell tower that hadn't rung in years. Inside, the air smelled of old paper and older promises. Judge Marcus Reed presided from behind a desk scarred by decades of decisions. He was 62 with white hair and eyes that had seen every kind of lie humanity could invent. He wore his black robe like armor. They said he'd never reversed a decision, never second-guessed himself, never let sentiment cloud judgment. Cole hoped that was wrong. The courtroom filled early. Seemed like half the town had shown up. Red sat in the front row, white beard, freshly trimmed. Abigail Holt sat beside him. Behind them, the 12 ranchers who'd pledged support, Doc Walsh. Sarah Bennett. People who'd decided courage mattered more than safety. On the other side of the room, Vernon Fletcher sat with his lawyer. Marcus Blackwood wore a suit that cost more than most men made in a year. He looked confident, comfortable, a man who knew how to win. Annie sat between Cole and Marshall Hayes at the plaintiff's table. She wore the blue dress Sarah had given her. Her hair was braided neat. She looked like any other child, except her hands. They gripped the edge of the table so hard her knuckles were white. Cole leaned close. "You remember what we talked about? Tell the truth. Don't add details unless asked. Don't get angry." "That's right." "I'm scared." "Me too." She looked at him surprised. "You are terrified, but we're doing it anyway. That's what courage is." Judge Reed banged his gavel. The sound cut through the murmur of voices like a blade. Court is now in session. In the matter of custody of Annie Fletcher, minor child. Mr. Blackwood, you represent Vernon Fletcher. Blackwood stood, smooth, practiced. "I do, Your Honor, and we're here today to ensure that this child is returned to her rightful guardian, her only living blood relative." Marshall Hayes, you're representing the child's current placement with Cole Garrett. Hayes rose. He looked rumpled next to Blackwood, but his voice was steady. "I am, Your Honor, and we're here to show that Vernon Fletcher is unfit for custody, that he murdered his brother and sister-in-law for financial gain, and that Annie Fletcher's safety depends on keeping her as far from him as possible." The courtroom erupted. Reed's gavel came down hard, 3 times. "Order. We'll have order or I'll clear this room." He looked at Hayes. "Those are serious accusations, Marshal. I hope you have evidence to support them." "We do, Your Honor." "Then let's hear it, mister." "Blackwood, call your first witness." Blackwood smiled. "I call Cole Garrett." Cole hadn't expected to go first. It was a tactic. Put him on the defensive. Make him explain himself before they'd built their case. He stood, walked to the witness chair, placed his hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. All of it, nothing but. Blackwood circled like a wolf that had scented blood. "Mr. Garrett, you're a bachelor, 33 years old, no wife, no children of your own. Is that correct?" "Yes." "You live alone on a ranch 15 miles from town, isolated, no neighbors for miles." "That's right." "Tell me, Mr. Garrett, what were you doing the day you found Annie Fletcher?" "Checking fence line, saw buzzards, went to investigate." "And you found a child, alone, dying, in the middle of the desert?" "Yes." "What did you do?" "Gave her water, took her to my ranch, kept her alive." Blackwood nodded. "Reasonable." "Of course. Any decent person would do the same. But then what? Why didn't you bring her directly to town, to the marshal, to proper authorities?" Cole met his eyes. "She asked me not to. Said someone was trying to kill her. A 9-year-old girl, in shock, traumatized. And you believed her every word. Why?" Cole was quiet for a moment, remembering. "Because I've heard that kind of fear before. In the war, in field hospitals, when men knew they were dying and needed someone to listen. That fear doesn't lie. But children imagine things, don't they? Especially traumatized children who've just lost their parents. She didn't imagine the poison that killed her folks. She didn't imagine Vernon and his men coming to my ranch to find her. She didn't imagine her uncle threatening to burn me out if I didn't hand her over." Blackwood's smile never wavered. "Let's talk about your background, Mr. Garrett. You fought in the war, Union cavalry, saw significant action, Antietam, Gettysburg, Appomattox." "Yes." "And after the war, what did you do?" "Came home, buried my mother, worked the ranch. Alone. Alone." Why alone, Mr. Garrett? Most men your age are married, have families. Why not you? Cole's jaw tightened. He knew where this was going. Personal choice. Or is it because you're not comfortable around people, because the war damaged you in ways that make normal relationships difficult? Objection. Hayes was on his feet. Mr. Garrett's marital status isn't on trial here. Goes to character, Your Honor, Blackwood said smoothly. Goes to whether he's a suitable guardian for a young girl. Reed considered. I'll allow it. But get to your point, Mr. Blackwood. Blackwood turned back to Cole. You live alone. You avoid town. You have no experience with children, and yet you took this girl into your home, kept her there for days before involving authorities. Some might wonder about your motivations. The implication was clear, ugly, designed to plant doubt. Cole's hands curled into fists. Then he saw Annie, watching him, trusting him. He forced himself to breathe. My sister died when I was 15, he said. His voice was level, cold. Lucy. She was 9 years old, same age as Annie. I held her hand while fever burned her alive, made her a promise before she died. Told her I'd protect people who couldn't protect themselves. The courtroom had gone silent. I failed her. Failed my mother. Spent 15 years thinking I was better off alone. That caring was just another way to get broken. Cole looked directly at Blackwood. Then I found a little girl dying in the desert, and I had a choice. Walk away and stay safe, or keep a promise I made 18 years ago. So this is about your dead sister, about your guilt. This is about doing what's right, and what gives you the right to decide what's right for Annie Fletcher. You're not family. You're not educated. You're a cowboy who lives in isolation. I'm a man who keeps his promises. Blackwood smiled. He'd gotten what he wanted, made Cole look like he was acting from trauma, from guilt, from anything but rational judgment. No further questions. Hayes stood for redirect. Cole, do you love that girl? The question caught everyone off guard, including Cole. He looked at Annie, at her small face, her frightened eyes, her trust. Yes, he said, I do. Would you die to protect her? Without hesitation. Would you live for her, raise her, give her a home and a future, every day for the rest of my life? Hayes nodded. That's all, Your Honor. Cole returned to his seat. Annie's hand found his under the table. Squeezed. Blackwood called Vernon next. Vernon took the stand looking like a grieving uncle. Suit pressed, expression sorrowful. He played the part perfectly. Tell the court about your brother, Blackwood prompted. Daniel was a good man. We weren't close in recent years. My fault, I'll admit. I let business come between us, but when I heard he'd died, I came as fast as I could. For Annie. She's all I have left of him. It was a good performance. Rehearsed, but believable. And when you arrived, Annie was gone. Yes, I was devastated, searched everywhere, then heard she'd been seen with Mr. Garrett. I tried to speak with him. He refused, threatened me. Objection, Hayes called. That's not how it happened. Sustained. Stick to facts, Mr. Fletcher, Vernon continued, painting himself as the concerned uncle. Cole, as the suspicious stranger. The story was full of half-truths and careful omissions. When he finished, Hayes stood for cross-examination. Mr. Fletcher, you said you and your brother weren't close. Why was that? Vernon hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. Distance. Different lives. Or was it because your brother didn't trust you? That's not true. Hayes pulled out a paper. This is a letter written by Daniel Fletcher, dated 2 months before his death, witnessed by Thomas Copperfield. Would you like me to read it? Blackwood stood. Objection. Hearsay. It's a dying declaration, Your Honor, admissible under exception to hearsay rule. Reed nodded. I'll allow it. Read the letter. Marshal. Hayes read Daniel's words, the warning about Vernon, the accusation, the plea to protect Annie. The courtroom was silent when he finished. Mr. Fletcher, Hayes continued, why would your brother write that? He was paranoid. The isolation, it affected his mind. Or maybe he knew you were planning to kill him. That's a lie. Hayes pulled out another document. This is a loan agreement. You borrowed $8,000 from a man in Denver 3 weeks before your brother died, a loan that's now overdue, with interest accumulating at 10% per month. Vernon's face went white. You needed money. Your brother had a survey map worth $50,000. Convenient that he died right when you were desperate. I didn't kill my brother. Then explain the arsenic we found in his cabin, the same arsenic you purchased from the general store 6 weeks before he died. The murmur in the courtroom grew louder. Reed's gavel came down. Blackwood was on his feet. Objection. There is no proof my client purchased anything. We have the store ledger, Your Honor. Vernon Fletcher's signature, dated February 12. Reed leaned forward. Mr. Fletcher, did you purchase arsenic? For rats. I had a rat problem. In your hotel room. No answer. Hayes pressed. You poisoned your brother and his wife. You planned to kill Annie to cover it up. And when that failed, you tried to use the legal system to get your hands on her. All for a map showing gold claims you could file under your own name. That's not true. None of it. Then why did your man Clay confess? The courtroom exploded. Vernon's face went from white to red. What? Hayes nodded to Marshal Reed. 2 deputies brought in a man with his arm in a sling. Clay, the same man who'd tried to burn Cole's ranch. Mr. Clay has agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence, Hayes said. Tell the court what you told me. Clay wouldn't meet Vernon's eyes. He paid me $500, me and Dutch, to put poison in Daniel Fletcher's well water, made it look like sickness. Vernon lunged from the witness stand. You bastard, you lying bastard. Deputies grabbed him, held him back. But the mask had slipped. Everyone saw it. The rage, the guilt, the truth. Reed's gavel came down like thunder. Order, I'll have order. It took 5 minutes to restore calm. Vernon was forced back into his seat, flanked by deputies now. Marshal Hayes, Reed said. Do you have more witnesses? One more, Your Honor. I call Annie Fletcher. The room went silent. Annie stood. She walked to the witness chair on legs that trembled. But she walked, placed her small hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. She looked so small in that chair, so young. Blackwood started to stand, to object. But Vernon grabbed his arm, whispered something. Blackwood sat back down. They were going to let her testify, confident they could break her. Hayes approached gently. Annie, tell the court what happened, in your own words. Annie took a breath. Then she began. She told it all, every detail, her father's suspicions, the overheard conversation, the poison, finding her parents dead, running. Her voice never wavered, never broke. Just steady truth laid out like cards on a table. And then what? Hayes prompted. Cole found me, saved me, believed me. Annie looked at Cole. He kept me safe. He kept his promise. Blackwood stood for cross-examination. His smile was gone now, replaced by something harder. Annie, you were very upset when your parents died, weren't you? Yes. Grief can make us imagine things, make us see patterns that aren't there. I didn't imagine anything. Are you sure? Because it seems very convenient. Your uncle shows up. You hear one conversation, and suddenly he's a murderer. I heard 3 conversations, over 2 days, about the map, about the poison, about making sure I didn't cause problems. Blackwood blinked. That wasn't in any of the statements. 3 conversations. Yes, the first was the night after the funeral. The second was the next morning. I was in the barn. They didn't know I was there. Vernon told Dutch to make sure the well water was contaminated thoroughly, use enough poison that there'd be no recovery. Her voice was clear, clinical. The third conversation was that night, when they realized the map wasn't in the safe, when Vernon said, I must have it, when he told them to make it look like an accident. The detail was devastating, specific, real. And you remembered all this, a 9-year-old child. My father taught me to listen, to remember. He said memory was the most important tool a surveyor had. Annie leaned forward. I remember everything, every word, every detail, including when you visited my uncle 3 days before my parents died, when you helped him write a will that left everything to him as next of kin. Blackwood's face went white. That's not... I never... But the damage was done. Everyone saw the truth in his reaction. Annie stood, small but terrible in her righteousness. She pointed at Vernon. He killed my parents. For money. For a map. And he would have killed me too if Cole hadn't found me. Her voice rose. I heard him. I heard everything. And I'm not lying. I'm not imagining things. I know what I heard. The courtroom erupted. People stood, shouting. Vernon's face was purple with rage. Deputies had their hands on their guns. Reed's gavel came down again and again. When silence finally returned, he looked at Annie. Really looked. Child, are you certain of what you're saying? Yes, sir. More certain than anything in my life. Reed nodded slowly. Then he turned to Vernon. Mr. Fletcher, based on the testimony I've heard today, the physical evidence, the financial records, the confession of your accomplice, and this child's testimony, I'm ordering your immediate arrest on suspicion of murder. Vernon was on his feet. You can't do this. I have rights. I'll appeal. You'll have your trial, but you'll have it from a jail cell. Reed looked at the deputies. Take him. They did. Vernon fought, screamed threats, promised revenge, but they dragged him out. The courtroom watched in silence. When he was gone, Reed turned back to Annie. His expression softened. Just a fraction. Miss Fletcher, regarding your custody, I'm granting temporary guardianship to Cole Garrett. provided he files for formal adoption within 6 months, and provided Sarah Bennett agrees to serve as a part-time guardian to satisfy propriety requirements. Sarah stood. "I do, Your Honor, gladly." "Then so ordered." Reed banged his gavel one final time. "This court is adjourned." For a moment no one moved, then Red started clapping. Slow, steady. Others joined. Soon the whole courtroom was on its feet, applauding, crying, celebrating justice done. Annie turned to Cole, tears streaming down her face. "We won! We won!" She threw herself into his arms. He caught her, held her, this brave, fierce child who'd stood in front of a courtroom and spoke truth to power. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered. "So proud." People surrounded them, shaking hands, offering congratulations. Red's embrace nearly cracked Cole's ribs. Dr. Walsh wiped his eyes. Abigail Holt hugged Annie like she was her own. It took an hour to escape the courthouse. By then the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Cole and Annie walked through town together, not saying much, just being. "What happens now?" Annie asked. "Now we go home. We build a life. We keep going. Together, together." They walked in silence for a while. Then Annie said, "Cole, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think my parents would be happy that I'm with you?" Cole stopped, knelt down, looked her in the eye. "I think they're watching right now, and I think they're so proud they could burst, and I think your father knew, somehow, that if anything happened, the right person would find you. You really think that—" "I know it." Annie hugged him. "Thank you. For everything. For saving me. For believing me. For being—" She didn't finish, didn't need to. Cole held her. This child who'd become his daughter in everything but law, who'd given him purpose again. They stood there as the sun set over Wyoming territory, as the stars began to appear, as the world turned and life went on. 6 months later, Judge Reed signed the final adoption papers. Annie Sullivan Fletcher Garrett. Official. Legal. Forever. They celebrated with a small party at the ranch. Red brought whiskey. Sarah made a cake. The whole town showed up. That night, after everyone had gone home, Cole and Annie sat on the porch, watching the stars, the way they did most nights now. "Pa," Annie said, "the word's still new, still wonderful." "Yeah, sweetheart. Do you think we'll always be happy like this?" Cole thought about it, about promises and truth and the weight of tomorrow. "I think we'll have good days and hard days. I think we'll fight and make up. I think we'll work hard and sometimes fail and sometimes succeed." He put his arm around her. "But I think we'll do it together, and that's what makes it worth it." Annie leaned against him. "I like that answer." "Good, because it's the truth." They sat in comfortable silence, father and daughter, by choice, by love, by promise kept. Somewhere above the stars wheeled in their eternal dance, and somewhere Cole liked to think Daniel and Grace Fletcher watched their daughter. Safe, loved, home. There are promises we keep because they're easy, and there are promises we keep because they define who we are. Cole Garrett had kept his promise. To Lucy, to himself, to Annie, and in keeping it he'd found something he'd thought lost forever. He'd found family. He'd found purpose. He'd found home. The last promise had become the first truth, and that was enough, more than enough. It was everything. Winter came to Wyoming territory with the force of divine judgment. Snow piled 6 feet deep in places. Wind howled down from the mountains like the voices of angry gods. The ranch became an island in a white ocean, cut off from town for days at a time. But inside the cabin, there was warmth. Cole had expanded the house over the summer, added a proper bedroom for Annie, built a sitting room with a fireplace big enough to heat the whole place, put in glass windows that let in light without letting in cold. The ranch was becoming a home. Annie was becoming his daughter. Not legally, not yet. The adoption process moved slow as winter molasses. Papers to file, investigations to complete, interviews with judges and social workers who wanted to make sure a bachelor cowboy could properly raise a young girl. Cole bore it all with patience he didn't know he had, answered every question, welcomed every inspection, proved again and again that Annie was loved, protected, wanted. But some nights the proof wasn't enough. Cole woke to the sound of screaming. He was out of bed before his eyes opened, crossing the hall in 3 strides. Annie's door was ajar. Inside she thrashed in her blankets, caught in the grip of nightmare. "No," she gasped. "Please, don't make me drink it. Don't make me." Cole knelt beside the bed, gentle, careful not to startle her. "Annie, sweetheart, wake up. You're safe. You're home." Her eyes flew open, wild, unseeing. Then she focused on him and the terror broke into tears. "I saw them," she sobbed. "My parents. They were drinking the water, the poisoned water, and I couldn't stop them. I tried to warn them, but no sound came out." Cole gathered her into his arms, let her cry against his shoulder. Her whole body shook with grief that had nowhere else to go. "It's not real," he murmured. "It's just a dream. They're at peace now, and you're safe. I've got you. It feels real. Every time it feels so real. I know." They sat like that for a long time, until the shaking stopped, until her breathing steadied, until the nightmare released its grip. "I'm sorry," Annie whispered, "for waking you. Don't apologize, not ever. That's what I'm here for." Do the dreams ever stop? Cole thought about his own nightmares, the war, Lucy's death, his mother's grief. They'd faded over the years, but never truly left. "They get quieter," he said honestly. "Time doesn't heal everything, but it makes the weight easier to carry." Annie pulled back, looked at him with eyes too old for her face. "How do I make them quieter?" "You talk about it. You remember the good things, not just the bad. You let yourself feel the grief without letting it consume you." He smoothed her hair back from her face. "And you let people who love you help carry the weight. Will you help me? Every day, for as long as you need." She settled back against him. "Tell me something good about your sister, Lucy." Cole was quiet for a moment. He rarely talked about Lucy. The memories hurt too much. But Annie needed this, needed to know that grief didn't have to be the end of everything. "Lucy loved thunderstorms," he said. "Used to stand on the porch and watch lightning split the sky. Mother would beg her to come inside, but she'd just laugh. Said God was putting on a show and she had front row seats." Annie smiled against his chest. "She sounds brave." She was. Brave and stubborn and full of more life than any one person should contain. His voice roughened. "The day she died, there was a thunderstorm. Huge one. Rain like you've never seen. And I swear I heard her laughing, like she was dancing in it somewhere we couldn't see." "Do you think she's with my parents now, wherever they are?" "I think so. I think she's probably teaching them how to appreciate a good storm." Annie's laugh was small but real. She yawned, exhaustion catching up. "Stay," she asked. "Until I fall asleep. I'll stay as long as you want." He settled into the chair beside her bed, kept watch as her eyes grew heavy, as her breathing evened out, as sleep claimed her again gentler this time. Cole sat there long after she'd drifted off, thinking about healing, about the long road ahead, about how love was the only medicine that really mattered. When spring came, they made a decision about the map. The survey Daniel Fletcher had created showed 3 major gold deposits in the Black Hills, worth a fortune, enough to make Annie wealthy beyond anything a child could comprehend. But Cole had seen what gold did to people, how it poisoned, how it destroyed. He wouldn't let it destroy Annie. With the gold money at stake and Vernon's desperation clear, Cole understood the real danger. It wasn't just about custody. It was about a fortune that men would kill for, had killed for. The map remained hidden, safe. A secret only 3 people knew, Cole, Annie, and Marshall Hayes. Vernon could suspect all he wanted. Without proof, without the map itself, he had nothing but accusations and debt. With the gold money at stake and Vernon's desperation clear, Cole understood the real danger. It wasn't just about custody. It was about a fortune that men would kill for, had killed for. The map remained hidden, safe. A secret only 3 people knew. Cole, Annie, and Marshall Hayes. Vernon could suspect all he wanted. Without proof, without the map itself, he had nothing but accusations and debt. Vernon Fletcher's trial lasted 3 days. Clay testified. So did Dutch, who'd been caught trying to flee to California. Both men detailed the poisoning, the planning. Vernon's obsession with the gold map. Dr. Walsh presented medical evidence. Marshall Hayes laid out the financial records. One by one, they built a case so airtight, even Vernon's expensive lawyer couldn't find cracks. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Came back with a verdict that surprised no one. Guilty, on all counts. Judge Reed sentenced Vernon to life in prison, hard labor, no possibility of parole. Cole was there for the sentencing. Annie wasn't. He'd made sure of that. Some things children didn't need to see. When it was over, when Vernon had been led away in chains, still protesting his innocence, Marshall Hayes found Cole on the courthouse steps. "It's done," Hayes said. "He'll never hurt her again. Good. You look like you're carrying the weight of the world." Cole leaned against the railing, just thinking about how close it came. If I'd ridden a different trail that day, if I hadn't seen the buzzards, if I'd decided she wasn't my problem. But you didn't. You chose different. You chose right. This time, Hayes studied him. "You know what I see when I look at you and Annie? I see a man who found his purpose, and a girl who found her father. That's not luck. That's providence. Maybe it was. Cole didn't know, didn't much care. All that mattered was the result. Annie was safe. Vernon was gone. The nightmare was over. Now came the harder part. Learning to live without fear. Learning to be happy. Cole started small. Built a swing set behind the house. Simple thing. 2 ropes and a wooden seat hung from the old cottonwood tree. It was identical to the one his father had built for Lucy. Annie found it one morning when she went to feed the chickens, just stood there staring at it. "It's for you," Cole said from the porch. She turned, eyes wide. "Really? Really? Try it out." She approached cautiously, touched the ropes, the seat, like it might disappear if she wasn't careful. Then she climbed on. Cole gave her a gentle push. Then another. Soon she was flying, hair streaming behind her, face tilted to the sky. And then it happened. She laughed. Not a small laugh, not a careful laugh, but a real full from the belly laugh of pure joy. It was the first time Cole had heard that sound from her. 8 months she'd been with him, and this was the first time she'd truly laughed. He had to turn away so she wouldn't see him crying. The adoption papers came through in late summer. Judge Reed signed them himself. Made it official. Annie Sullivan Fletcher Garrett. They held a small ceremony at the ranch. Sarah Bennett brought a cake. Red gave a speech that made everyone cry. Doc Walsh presented Annie with her father's surveying tools carefully preserved. "Your pa would want you to have these," Walsh said, "to remember him by, to carry on his work if you choose." Annie accepted them with trembling hands. "Thank you for everything, for believing me when it mattered most. You made it easy, child. Truth always does." That evening, after everyone had left, Annie found Cole in the barn. "Can we talk about something?" she asked. "Always." "My name. I want to keep Sullivan as my middle name, so it's Annie Sullivan Garrett." Cole understood immediately. "You want to honor your parents. They gave me life. They loved me. They taught me everything that matters." She looked up at him. "But you gave me a future. You gave me a home. I want both names. I want to be both people." "Then that's what you'll be." She hugged him, hard. "Thank you, Pa." The word still made his heart skip. Pa, not Cole, not Mr. Garrett. Pa. He'd never get tired of hearing it. Sarah Bennett came by the next day with a small box. Inside was a ring, simple gold band, worn smooth by decades of wear. "This was my husband's wedding ring," she said. "He died 5 years ago. I've been keeping it, not sure what to do with it. But I realized last night it should go to family." She pressed it into Cole's hand. "You and Annie, you're family now, not by blood but by choice, and that's just as strong." Cole tried to refuse. "Sarah, I can't take this." "You already have. That girl in there is your daughter. This ranch is your home. This town is your family." She smiled. "The ring is just a symbol, but symbols matter." Cole wore it on a chain around his neck. Next to the St. Christopher medallion that had belonged to Daniel Fletcher, 2 fathers, 2 promises, both kept. With the gold money secured and the future provided for, Cole made one more decision. Willow Creek needed a school, a real one. Not just the one-room building that served 20 students on good days. Something permanent, something that would last. He donated land on the edge of town, used part of Annie's trust fund with the bank's permission to build a proper schoolhouse. 2 stories, 6 classrooms, a library, everything a growing community needed. They named it the Sullivan School. On the dedication day, Annie stood beside Cole and cut the ribbon. She was 10 now, taller, stronger, still carrying grief, but no longer crushed by it. "My father believed education was the key to everything," she told the crowd. "He taught me to read, to think, to question. This school will do the same for other children. It's his legacy, and I'm proud to be part of it." The applause was thunderous. That night back at the ranch, Annie asked Cole to help her with something. She led him to a clearing behind the house. 3 spots marked with stones. "I want to plant trees," she said. "One for my mother, one for my father, one for Lucy." Cole's throat tightened. "That's a beautiful idea." They worked together in the fading light, digging holes, setting saplings, 3 young cottonwoods that would grow tall and strong watching over the land. Annie stood back studying her work. "Do you think they can see us from wherever they are?" "I think so." "Do you think they're proud?" Cole put his hand on her shoulder. "I know they are." She leaned against him, father and daughter. 2 people who'd found each other in the worst moment and built something beautiful from the ashes. "I love you, Pa." "I love you too, sweetheart, more than anything in this world." They stood there as stars emerged, as the wind whispered through new leaves, as the world turned and life continued its endless dance. 1 year after Cole found her dying in the desert, Annie Fletcher Garrett sat on the porch with her surveying tools spread before her. She was drawing a map, not of gold deposits, just of the ranch, the land she now called home. Her lines were precise, confident, the work of someone who'd inherited her father's gift and made it her own. Cole came out, coffee in hand, sat beside her. "What are you working on?" "Mapping the North Pasture. Thought it might be good to know exactly where our boundaries are." "Our boundaries. I like the sound of that." Annie smiled, set down her pencil. "Pa, can I ask you something? You know you can ask me anything. That first day, when you found me, you asked me a question. Do you remember?" Cole remembered. Every word, every moment. "I asked what you could do." Why that question? Why not who I was or where I came from? Cole was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "Because I learned something in the war. People aren't defined by what happened to them. They're defined by what they do next. I didn't need to know your past to know you deserved a future." Annie nodded slowly. "That question saved my life. It made me think about what I could offer instead of what I'd lost. You offered everything: courage, trust, truth. You gave me a reason to keep my promise." She looked at him. This girl who'd walked through hell and come out standing, who'd faced her demons in a courtroom and won, who'd chosen to honor the past while building a future. "Ask me again," she said. "What? Ask me the question, like you did then." Cole smiled, set down his coffee, turned to face her fully. "What can you do, Annie Sullivan Garrett?" She met his eyes, steady, sure, strong. "Anything I set my mind to, Pa." "That's my girl." They sat together in comfortable silence, the kind that comes when words aren't necessary, when presence is enough. Above them, the stars wheeled in their eternal patterns, the same stars that had witnessed every promise ever made, every vow ever kept, every love ever given. And somewhere in the distance, 3 young cottonwood trees swayed in the evening breeze, growing, reaching, becoming what they were meant to be, just like the girl who'd planted them, just like the man who'd given her the chance. Years later, when Annie was grown and had children of her own, she would tell them this story, about a cowboy who'd found her dying in the desert, about a promise made and kept, about how love doesn't need blood to be real, how family is built from choice and courage and staying when it would be easier to run. And she would tell them the lesson that mattered most. What happened to you doesn't define you. What you do next does. Her father had taught her to survey land, to map the visible world. Cole had taught her something more, to map the invisible, to navigate grief and fear and loss, to find solid ground when everything was shifting, to build a home not from wood and nails, but from trust and promises and love. That was his legacy, their legacy, the promise that became a family, the stranger who became a father, the lost girl who found her way home. In the end, that's all any of us can hope for, to keep our promises, to stand when it's easier to fall, to choose love over fear, to build something that outlasts us. Cole Garrett had done that. Annie had done that. Together they'd taken broken pieces and made something whole. And in the vastness of Wyoming territory under skies that stretched forever, their story became the kind that people told around fires, the kind that reminded everyone what was possible when you asked the right question. Not who are you, not where are you from, not what happened to you, but what can you do? And the answer always forever was the same. Anything, everything, whatever it takes to keep the promises that matter. The sun set over the ranch. Golden light painted everything in shades of hope. And in that light, a father and daughter sat together. Not by blood, not by law, though that too, but by something stronger, by choice, by love, by promise, by the truth that family isn't who you're born to, it's who you'd die for, who you'd live for, who you choose every single day to keep showing up for. That was the last promise. And the first truth. And it was enough, more than enough. It was everything.